Decorating Pages podcast presents Production Design Film Study. This class examines Oscar-nominated films spanning a century of cinema. Accomplished professionals in production design will explore and dissect the sets featured in these nominated films and will educate why they were recognized for the design of their time. This class features the films of 1980, and this year's films will be reviewed by Kim Wannop, set decorator, and Lydon, production designer, art director.
What's going on in that year also like more sci-fi stuff and then periods but I guess three of them are four of them are periods actually.
Well, they're all period, really.
Well, yeah.
Except for I mean, Empire Strikes Back is obviously a sci-fi movie, but the other ones are all set in, well, Coal Miner's Daughter is what, like late 1940s through the early 70s.
Right.
So there's no contemporary movies here.
Right. Which I thought was interesting.
Which is very interesting, yeah. So because when we talked about other things, there was contemporary movies in there last time. So this is it's quite.
Why did you select this year? Let me ask you that.
I selected this year because of what you said. It was a very interesting mix up, and I like the fact that the Elephant Man was in there as a black and white movie in 1980. It's been probably at that point in 1980, it's got to been at least 2 decades or so since it was a black and white movie. By the 60s, black and white was completely on the way out, and by the end of the 60s, it was all color. So just to have a black and white movie in there, and I feel it works better because it's black and white. But we can talk about that more when we get to the movie itself.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just like the culture of each of these films is dramatically different.
Absolutely. Yeah. And they all have such a different vibe, and they just reflect a different story, each one of them. And they're all told well, and they're all visually told well, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a good year. Good pick.
Yeah, it was good.
So Coal Miner's Daughter, production designer John Corso and set decorator John M. Dwyer, who John Dwyer got the SDSA Lifetime Achievement Award about 10 years ago. Right. And I remember seeing Coal Miner's Daughter on his like bio thing, and I was like, oh my God, that guy did that. Like you get like in all about like this little tiniest little thing.
Right.
But he also did Jaws, and he did a lot of Star Trek. So
yes, he had a very wide range of stuff he did.
Yeah. And John Caruso went on to be like John Hughes's guy and did all those great 80s films, like unbelievable.
Yes. Yeah. It was absolutely. Do you want to talk about the plot first, or do you want to talk about...
I was going to read the little I have a little blurb if I could find it. Here it is. The fictionalized life of singer Loretta Lynn, a girl who rose from humble beginnings to becoming a country music star in the 60s and 70s. It's, I guess, reading into it, it's like she was very involved with this movie, even helping to cast Sissy Spacek. She really wanted her to play her. And the biggest thing about the film is like she's 13 with a 22-year-old. And then they find in the last decade or so, they found her birth certificate, but she was really 16 or something. So,
oh, okay. They didn't know.
That's what I looked into.
Okay. Well, it's still 16.
Really great depiction of like small town life and
absolutely. Yeah.
And the poor families. It was shot in Virginia.
Right.
I love seeing, there's a whole montage of coal miners and everything that I thought was fascinating research for those, that occupation. And then you had brought up this point of
So
yeah,
his red truck. Yeah. So I thought at the very beginning, yeah, the contrast between the fact that when she's introduced, like she's wearing that red jacket as well, which is kind of symbolic. But
right.
it's a great thing where she's like, here on the horse and it's poor and it's, whatever, and it's just very hard life. And then he comes by with this flash red,
Yeah.
and it's just like it's a pop of life around the rest of the whole thing. They're in the mining station, and it's
Super
all
dreary.
very
Yeah.
dreary. All the colors are all very earthy tones. Everybody's dirty, and he's there in that uniform, and he's all clean, and he's like, I bet you guys I can get up that hill. It's like he was like symbolic of, I am getting the hell out of here. And she could see that about him. And it was just like I found it very visually interesting that if you were watching this and the audio wasn't there, you kind of figure out that this guy was the guy that was going to go somewhere, when
Yeah.
the rest were all just like covered in dirt, and it's all very like muted colors, and it's overcast and gray, and it's just this fireball of red. I thought visually it was a really good move to have him in that red
And that's a
picture.
production designer, and that's a transpo director.
Yeah,
That's a decision made by the overall design team of a
yeah,
film.
absolutely. And that's, it's such a great, visual thing put that as a design element in there to
Yeah.
kind of symbolize all that. So I thought that was a great point, that, this was a starting point and it was going to transform, and the film transforms like visually and color wise as it goes on,
Yeah.
beyond this point as they move. But yeah, I want to talk about this, about, we're looking at her shack and her house and all that, and how rural it all is.
Yeah. It's
And
like coming
it
up there's no road. There's no
there is
road to
no
their
road,
house.
and like they're digging coal out of the side of a hill, and
Yeah.
she's saying she's in love with this guy to her father and all that stuff. And it's just what I like about this is that as a design, there's so much great location design work in this movie.
Yes.
Like all these exterior shots of like all the cabins they built, and just the detail with like all the logs, like, and yeah, and this interiors as well. And
Like, what's
it's
that bucket for hanging? Or like, look at this, the saws hanging. Like, there's a
yeah,
yeah, and like they still have lanterns hanging. Like, they might not have electricity at some point, or
yeah, exactly. And it's all, they're going to an outhouse. It's just like
yeah, yeah,
it's just like visually, this is an interesting time as well, because in the 1970s, film stock, they invented higher speed film. So it was easier to shoot all this stuff on
God,
location and make it look really good. I mean,
yeah,
they did have it in the 60s, and you can watch like, Easy Rider and all that stuff. But this is more, you get more bang for your buck, because by the 70s, the film stock quality was so much better, the detail and everything, you can see so much more, and then you can use it in low lighting and so that, like, this movie is a great example of locations,
yeah. Because
shooting on location.
they didn't build all this. In fact, this set that was used for this house
Mm-hmm.
reassembled in Hurricane Mills, which is Loretta Lynn's current house,
Right.
and is on her ranch tour. So they liked the set so much that she put it up at her house.
Nice.
Yeah. It's
That's
so sweet, really.
yes.
And it's poor, but not too sad. Like, I read something, Sissy Spacek praised the production designer and his design team for the degree of authenticity they lent to the story without falling into a cliche, like portraying hillbillies in squalor.
Right. Yeah. And they're not
They
all
were
sitting.
working poor family.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, their house, if you look at it, it looks like, it's fallen apart, and like the wallpaper's peeling and everything, but it's still their home, and they've, they have all this detail in there, and it's dressed really well
Yeah.
to, to show the characters. And like that shot there we're looking at of her looking in the mirror, but you can see the ceiling is just crumbling above her.
Yeah. Well, it's newspapers. There's a thing I didn't really catch it. And then I read that they use newspapers as wallpaper.
That's right. Yes.
Redolyn's family had really done. And
right.
So it's wallpaper. And there's another scene. Oh, I made that bigger. Yeah. Look at it, like the wallpaper's peeling off.
Peeling off. And but it's still got like, it's still like a family home, but it's all kind of like they're living it. It's really well lived in, and it looks like, they've lived there for a long time, but someone else lived there a long time before that. It's got a real feel that this house has been there a while, and it's, they're in here now, and it's got a lot of character, and it's poor, but, and it's falling apart, but they're making it their home.
Yeah.
It absolutely feels.
In dressing, sometimes like it's pulling back things like that, hooks over there. It doesn't have anything on it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And that means something. And there's always this like control thing of like, you put a picture there, put something on there, do this, and like,
we need more. Put 4 pictures there.
I only want one. I only want one scarf, like, or I only,
Right.
So it's great. I love seeing blank walls and everything. But look at the newspaper and.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the newspaper is so prominent. It's such a thing.
Falling apart, and it's a great amount of detail in their house.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And then as we move on, and even in these locations, like this looks like a location, this where she with the pie thing. And the town hall. And again, it's kind of like, it's got a kind of a mutity colored feel to it, but it's lived in as well, and there's character to it. There's a lot of character in the detail, all the stuff like with the kids, and all that. But it's a very basic, fallen apart building, and it just feels like really well thought out. And again, with the lighting, it looks like they lit it very kind of. There's a little bit of light, but it looks like they lit with like overhead practicals as well, and
most of the pictures on these presentations are me like screen capturing as I'm watching them.
Okay, right.
in some of the films that don't have as many shots online with sets in them, so there is a contrast. Like what it really is the bottom picture, which you're talking about, which is very low light. I don't, it's more realistic. It's more overall done and everything. It really lends to their little environment.
Yeah. And then it's interesting because there's clearly, as they transition, it starts changing and the spaces get bigger. But we'll talk about as we get there. But this is great. Like they're
fantastic. They get married. They go to this is their wedding night suite.
Yeah.
How and why these walls are that green, and then this fantastic patterned curtains.
I know.
Is so fantastic. And her in her little red jacket is like, it's incredible to me that green exists in this film.
I know. And it's another kind of symbol of, I don't know, the kind of earthiness of where they are. Like it's still in that Kentucky environment. So it's got the bedspreads of brown and the green thing, walls, and the place is falling apart. Like it's really sleazy. But it's just fantastically, looks so like, oh my God, this is going to be like their wedding night, and it's just such a, this is poor, and this is, but it's still, this room is a kind of a step up from where she used to live.
It is. It's the Ritz, really.
Yeah, exactly. Compared to exactly, this environment.
And then they get a house. He moves her away. They get a house. Now, what was fantastic to me is such the amount of details in these sets. Like the shelves are falling apart, like on the left, and
Right.
like the wallpaper is, I think they went in
Oh,
and put that wallpaper in there. But I will tell you, I really struggle with when you have to do a environment like this and they're like, oh, there's weird pictures here and there. To put pictures weirdly like
yeah.
this is hard.
It
Uh,
is, yeah, because like, your natural tendency is to
yeah.
go in and do it. Oh, it should be straight. It should be this.
Yeah.
It
It should
should be
be
all that.
straighter. There should be a group of three or this or that, or like, oh, that one's askew and then this one's perfect. Like it's
Yeah,
hard to do to make it look
absolutely.
authentic
Yeah, totally, totally. And
and
just
not
to,
a crazy person.
yeah. And to kind of convey the character of that place and the family who lived there, to just, who put those up? The kids put them up? Did the
Yeah.
mom put them on the wall like that? It's interesting. And they use, like, what's great about the dressing as well, and everything looks like it's not a luxury. It's like a very kind of used, everything's used, and it's practical, and they're using every jar there. There's like 50 jars there. Everything is put in there because that's all they have. So there's
Yeah.
no luxury in
And the
anything.
plunger on the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
Like so perfect.
Bucket of coal, and yeah, it's just, yeah,
Yeah. And
it's so
then
good.
and aging is so important of like, by the
The
handle,
door,
the
yeah,
split plates and where you touch the door. And this guy's
right.
miserable. Look, he's miserable. He got out of town and he just
Yeah,
went to another town like to be miserable. Like
yeah, exactly. And he's like, I don't want to be a coal miner, and
yeah.
and he's like, got her out, and he's like, you're the one who's going to make it. You can sing, you got this, you got the
Yeah.
guitar, you got this.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is interesting because this is like when they've gone to Seattle. So it's like the palette even changes color wise.
Yeah.
It's interesting to shift. There's more
Different
blue,
house. It's a
and the house.
different house from what we from the previous slides. It's
Exactly.
years later, 5, 6 years later. Now they got 4 kids,
They
five
got
kids.
4 kids, and she's like what, 17 now or
Yeah,
what?
no, she's 17. I didn't mean to cut her guitar off. I'm
Yeah.
bummed with that. But again, the use of a car to show like they got an old clunker, but they got a car.
Yeah. And it's a transition as well, where he was like Mr. Speedy around, going around with his Jeep and his red Jeep and everything. And now it's transitioned into a different color, and it's more practical, and they've got kids. And there's still like a environment, like it feels kind of like what we've seen before, but now it's more
This is nice.
nice.
Like,
Yeah, they're
the
obviously,
curtains
they've
are
made it
nice. And they have some nice pots. They got plates that match. That also
right.
cued me because before there was a mismatch. And
Yeah,
now
it
they've
was.
got like patterns and things. And
Yeah. And like, the curtains, everything is nicer. It's like the walls don't have any, it's not falling apart anymore.
right.
And this is kind of transitioning towards, it's going to be more of the color is coming into the world as
Yeah.
she as a character is starting to come out of herself more. It feels like their whole world is starting to shift in a different direction visually.
Yeah.
And here again with the kids and stuff, like they have a brighter, bed covers, and the tables, everything just feels like it's like moving in a direction.
The two
And it's
kids
a
to the
different,
bed, though. Two kids in the
still
bed.
two kids to a bed. Yeah, I know, but I suppose as opposed to 4 kids to a bed, I suppose.
It's true. Oh, I
um,
put that picture in again. But I mean,
yeah,
this is one thing that caught me is they did a wet down,
right. I can
but
see that there.
you
Yeah.
can see like they didn't do it under the basket or under her chairs or whatever.
They probably just wet it down and then said, lock it up,
Yeah.
roll camera. Yeah.
Um, that
It
was the
didn't.
only thing I think I caught of like, oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Bad one.
That's not.
But even outside dressing, like doing the porch, There's
The
a
logs, yeah.
lot of times people who are poor at this level still have a lot of shit. They still have a lot
Yeah,
of going on. Like, they say you save things, or, you acquire things, or they're just older versions of what should be there.
right. But the dressing is all like it's all practical still in the sense there's no luxury stuff. Like she's
Right.
sitting there beside
That
their
laundry.
laundry,
Yeah.
their washing machine, and it's going to be like a hellish day of washing with that thing because it's all
Yeah.
hand cranked. And then I like as well that there's like logs of wood. We've gone from seeing buckets of coal to logs and
Yeah.
stuff outside now, and it feels like there's more green as well here because we're obviously in Seattle when he's working as in the logging business now. But it's definitely it's a great transitional
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
Everything feels a little more up, and it color wise, it's getting to a different palette, and we're going in a certain direction.
Oddly enough, I did keep waiting for him to beat her.
Yeah, there was always
There
that
was-
moment. There was always that kind of thing. I thought this was going to end like
Yeah,
with
I thought it was going to end badly.
badly,
But
yes, and in
it's
the
actually
hospital.
a very sweet story. It's a very, I mean, I don't know how much of it's true. I have no idea, but
Right.
he believes in her so much. And
Yes,
they're taking the kids to these recording studios, and using the sleeping bags and the quilts on the walls of these like local recording studios is just fantastic.
absolutely. Yeah. It's got such a good, visual feel, and it tells a story, and it's practical. It's like, this is not like a high end, this is not RCA, then it's not Capitol Records. She's in a small little place, and it's kind of another transitional thing, and it's showing all these like elements where this place is just like a makeshift garage slash studio that
Or
some guy or
or even like taking pictures.
yeah, that was great. I love that scene where they were taking her pictures for her record cover, and
Love
it's
it. Using
it's
the
just
pot.
there with and here, put the bed sheet back on the bed. We're
Yeah.
done. It's just like,
And using the pot cover as like a reflective,
yeah,
and
and they're using the lamp, like the practical, to light it, and it's even like the way it's lit. You can see the shadow behind her. It's like it's like he's just kind of figuring this out because he believes in the opportunity. He's definitely they're a good combination because he's clearly the guy who can figure out like, okay, I'm going to do how do we get a record deal? How do we do an album cover? How do we do this stuff where, she's like, I'm the creative one. I can play the songs. I can sing.
yeah.
They,
And she's
they have
ballsy. She's ballsy in it too.
absolutely. And it's interesting as well, like where in, an earlier scene where she's like the first time she performs on stage and she's like got stage fright and all that. And they encourage her, and then she really comes out of herself. And by the time she's at the radio station, she's changed as a character as well.
Yeah.
She's
She,
very much like, wait, you haven't even opened up my record. You're telling me it was crap and no one wanted to listen to it. It's still in the envelope I mailed to you, and then they put it on. It was great.
record stations were great too. I have to think that those were locations.
Yeah, it did feel like
I don't know if I
a
have that.
lot of this movie was location based,
Yeah.
and but it's really great because they're dressed so well. So that's I always feel like when I go into a location, it's like the set decorator's got to save us here
Yeah.
because it's all about the dressing. Like I'm not building any walls. I
Yeah. The
might paint
walls
a
are
wall.
perfect. We found a
Yeah,
great location. Now we just have to dress in the characters and the story.
yeah. It has to be conveyed through the dressing 100% for this location.
And I love
And
this car dressing. I love her.
yeah,
They're living in the car. They're going to radio stations. Her dress that she wears to like every little interview.
right.
Just
Which
and
she has on in the album cover. It's yeah.
it's so great.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well, like it's her clothes are changing as well. Obviously,
Yeah.
she's getting more pops of red. She had the red coat at the beginning, but it's funny because he's like getting less of the red, and her visual look is getting more red elements and stuff, as well. He's going like into more muted colors, and she's the one who's starting to but at the beginning.
Sorry. I went to
You okay?
Yeah, I went to take a drink to stop coughing, and then it went down the wrong hole.
Yeah.
Hold on, I'm just gonna stop this for a second.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, too, because this thing came on, which I can't stop. Sorry.
It's
It was
okay.
like a trifecta of
You're still getting over your cold. So it's
yeah,
understandable. Yeah.
it's been a week and I felt a little better, but that's not.
You're not
Okay.
100%. It's still stuck in your chest a little bit, is it?
Yeah. Okay, so 45 minutes. I gotta cut that out. Okay.
Okay. Do you want a second? We can.
Yeah. Let's check on the SAG.
See if they're gone back to work yet.
Yeah, in this interview, they should be done by the time we get done.
Yeah, we should be getting the phone should be ringing by whatever 3 o'clock with a job offer.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was so nice that the producer even emailed us.
Yeah, that's great. Have you talked to Ian?
No, I haven't. He was on an email, but
Right.
you know, Benson, get out of there. Okay. Drink of water, and I'm gonna be fine.
Butter.
You can't
Okay.
stay in here though. No. You have to get out. We have this day bed in the back of me, and the dog just thinks it's his like den underneath.
Yeah, that happens. My just
Okay.
take over.
Hmm.
Okay, let me know when you want to.
Let's see.
Okay.
So I think I started coughing about the time talking. Let's see, we talked about
We were.
decorator and finding a good location, and then the dress. Oh, you were saying that his color palette.
I felt it was kind of like as they were on the road and everything, it seemed like her color palette was moving more in a brighter colors, and his was kind of like shifting. He was when they started off, it was kind of like he's got his red Jeep and I'm gonna get us out of here and all that. And now that she's the star, he at one point when he had to work more and his dreams are crushed or whatever, she's now the star and he's kind of like, okay, I get it. I'm the guy who's behind the star kind of thing.
Which
So it
I
kind
found
of,
incredibly a great plot point in a sense of like, oh, he's not just going to turn into like this alcoholic asshole.
right.
He actually feels like, no, you know what? I got to step back. I got to go do me, and I'll still support you and everything, but I'm totally happy, going to work and doing my thing because you're the star here. And he
Right.
was getting jealous and
Yeah, because I was assuming it was going to go that way with the movie
yeah.
as well. I hadn't seen this movie in a long time, so I'd forgotten how it had gone. But yeah, it's great. And now, like, here she is at the Grand Ole Opry, and that was interesting because I felt also this was kind of like more, you know, her like before earlier on it was kind of like the more kind of very small, but as her shots and stuff, but as it went on it seems like to open up, we see more, she's in a bigger world and we're seeing more of her and she's in wider shots and we see more of the sets and stuff as well from earlier.
I know they shot the exterior of the Opry. I
Yeah.
feel like this is the Opry.
Yeah, I feel it is.
I think
It
it
or it's definitely a location anyway.
is. But
So
because then they go to that background that you always see, which is like the red. I don't know if I have that. The red barn sort of door background kind of the
yeah,
Grand Old Opry. So,
Johnny
but
Cash and everybody.
I
Yeah.
also love like the older signage, the older fonts, like all
Yeah,
of like the below picture is her like basically in a record store playing,
right.
which is fantastic. A little
Yeah,
record store.
absolutely. Yeah. And like those signs are all like, they look like they're hand painted as
Yeah,
well. And it's very, this is probably the 50s, late 50s, early 60s at this point in the
yeah,
storyline.
yeah. I think
And the very like the signage looks great. It's very well thought out. It looks like the stuff from that time period.
so.
And yeah, it's simple dressing as well, but it's very effective.
Yeah.
And everything works really well visually, I feel.
Um, now the Patsy Cline
Yeah.
really gets the color and like
Yes.
it's not opulent. I mean, it's just pieces that are so effective in
Yes. Your eye goes to them. Yeah.
this is basically a white room. They didn't it's not wallpapered, it's not a big round room or whatever. Like I when I think of Patsy Cline, I think of Sweet Dreams. And I've seen
Right.
the movie probably like 20 times. And I felt this is a very poor version of Patsy Cline, but they did try to give her like the pink back there and the red glass and then the yellow glass lamps and
Yeah.
just this
Exactly.
frilliness that she had in her life and maybe that Loretta, could get into eventually, which she
Yeah.
does.
Which she does after Patsy dies as well. And
Yeah.
sorry if anybody watching or listening. Plot point.
Yeah. Yeah. Spoiler, Patsy Cline
Spoiler.
in like
Patsy Cline dies.
1959. Like,
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, this is great because this is like the transition as well, and she's going to transition into a different color palette as well, her world.
yeah.
So it's a clear influence, and all the Patsy Cline stuff, and she's the even her, I think her hospital room, there's like tons of flowers in it as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. It's like a very muted green, I think,
Uh,
hospital room that they put her in when you first see Patsy. But
yeah,
and I think too, like you're calling it like the red pillows is another sense because then they start showing like Loretta like picking up speed and getting popular. And then the
exactly.
dresses and the hair all change and the stage design is, it's her own show now.
Yeah, and this is probably early 70s, late 60s, early 70s at this point.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's definitely, like completely different from the start of the movie at this point. It's, I feel what I always find like a good thing about if you can watch a good design thing in a film is if you have no audio and or you can't speak the language, and you just watch this movie from start to finish and you can just visually see what's happening to these people,
Mm.
their colors and their the design and the authenticity of the costumes for the time period and all that. You can tell there's a transition in time from the 40s to the 70s. It's all done so well. It's always if you turn off your audio and
Yeah.
just this and you're like, I can still kind of know what's happening just visually.
Well, you're in the 70s in this room.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
I
this
mean,
is
this
fantastic.
is like unbelievable. So this is like their house once they get rich. This is their bedroom.
Yes.
And that like is that like a silk or like a satin wallpaper? You know how they used to have that like
It feels like it's maybe like a silk or yeah, it's so like it is of that time period. If you go to Graceland, have you been to Graceland?
no, but I've seen
Okay,
Elvis.
yeah. So I mean, when you go to Graceland, like, and it's a time capsule, and that when I looked at this, I thought of like I just had remembered when I went to Graceland like several years ago. And it's got that, there's kind of that opulent, kind of like over the top, slightly gaudiness of the early
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's dressed by, it's, you know, a musician has said, I want this wallpaper, or I want this. An entertainer has, you know, and this reflects that this is like, you know, her, what she wanted in the room, or, you know, she's
Oh,
obviously that
those
she's,
those
that's,
pink dolls, like that's on top of the shelf in the bathroom, and then
that's
on top of the fireplace, and then on the bottom of the fire, like the dolls around are so creepy.
I know.
That I don't get, but I know it was like a 70s thing. I actually think that they're like toilet paper holders or something, to be quite
Yeah, yeah. It's
remember.
very like, it feels like that.
And
There's always like a lot of like little characters or little like knights or something holding a
yeah,
uh
yeah, yeah. But
thing.
there, I put it insert because there's another scene of him in the bathroom, and those
Yeah,
towels are
this town.
so fantastic. They're so fantastic. I love it's
Fantastic. Yeah. The detail is great. It's just, you know, and the whole thing, like the swishes in the fabric and above their bed and everything, it's just like royalty compared to like where she was in the room with the, you know, newspaper on the walls when she was a kid or a teenager at the very start of the movie. It's just like such a great transition.
and then this, I don't know. I mean, I know that that door is like glossy.
Right.
It's glossy. I know the reflection of that is like my wall with pictures on it, but
Yeah.
that door is like glossy into like their little family room. It's so weird. Like I don't know
Yeah.
what these. I'm like, was that a thing? Like this glossy door?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that could have been a design conversation. That could have been more for, you know, it could have been, oh, let's have more, let's paint it in a, you know, a semi-gloss or something, or eggshell, just to just give it a little bit more pop, just because we're in a different place and it's not the beginning of the movie where it's more muted, you know.
Yeah.
That
And
could
then
be, and it give them more life, because, you know, they're obviously like they're lighting a lot of this naturally, but there's probably overhead lights on this one, but there is practicals as well, but it does feel like, you know, it warms up everything, I think, with
yeah.
the glossiness a little bit.
Well, I mean, the drapery is great. Those pictures, because those are old string pictures, like that
Right.
carrot, like it's all string. And then the kids on the ground, like, and then there's some, they've been coloring and
Right.
there's a fabulous amount of
Yeah. And the red carpet, like
yeah, the
it's,
red.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
another, yeah.
that was kind
It
of fun. I
it was,
love it.
there's another example of the red, like they use the red, like it's
Mm-hmm.
as a language as well. You know, it's like it's in it. Every time you see red in this movie, it's some kind of like very bold visual thing, like the
Yeah.
red floor or whatever. It's always used like it's not subtle at all.
I
When you
mean, I should have put a picture in of the tour bus because that's always fun. I thought I had one, but the story goes on. I mean, she gets tired, she gets worn out. She's got, I think it was sleeping pills she's on, but then she like cleans it up and she's back in and she's,
yeah,
on top. Like, and it seemed like a pretty happy marriage that they had. So
yeah, and it was a good, nice transition as well. For you saw at the beginning of the movie, like she's on the horse on the side of the hill, and it ends kind of like on the side of the hill, but he's building her the house.
yeah,
You know, so it was a nice kind of transition as well. The whole storyline was good.
yeah, I
So
liked it. I mean,
definitely liked this movie,
I think
and
production design wise, it's worthy of being acknowledged. Definitely.
like, yeah, absolutely. It was a great visual journey. Just, you know, great use of locations, great set dressing.
Yeah.
Like set dressing, like I said, you know, in a location, as you well know, will always save the, you know.
Yeah.
So it's great.
Yeah. That was a good one. And then you have
Yeah.
the Elephant Man.
Switch is
So
so,
yeah,
yeah. You wanna,
the Elephant Man. It's production designer Stuart Craig and Robert Cartwright and set decorator Hugh Scaffey. Um, a Victorian surgeon rescues a heavily disfigured man who is mistreated while scraping a living as oh no, I don't know what that says. Well, he goes to a freak show and he finds this man who's heavily disfigured.
Right.
So he has, and this is a true story, ish. But
America, yeah.
behind the facade of this disfigurement is a real person, as he says, who's highly intelligent and he's kind and sophisticated, and um, it's a really sad story. It's it's just it's beautifully done. My God, the
Oh my,
shots of the film
yeah,
are unbelievable.
absolutely. I, you know, I've seen this movie many, many times. I
Oh,
haven't, yeah, I haven't seen it recently, but it just stands out. It's just like, so David Lynch directed this movie.
yes,
This is his first big movie. He did Eraserhead before this,
right,
and Mel Brooks, of all people, is the producer of this movie,
yeah.
saw Eraserhead and went, that guy should direct this movie. And it's just got such a strong visual language and a feel to it. It really stands out,
I
I
had
feel.
so many screen grabs of this film and found so many great screen grabs of this film that
Right.
I hope this doesn't turn into like watching the film. But in
Uh,
the beginning, I mean, the fantastic where they just kind of throw you into this dirty, like
this dirty and the use of mechanical, weird, creepy mechanical things with the steam coming out of everything and the sounds and everything. It's very nightmare feeling. Like it's a world that's very dreamlike or nightmare feeling. It's just like it's not a world you'd willingly step into. You go in there and it's like, oh, everything is just so like the poor are poor. There's like all these machines and
I hate this period. I hate it. I hate like anything medical this period. That show The Nick was like a nightmare for me to watch, but I liked it. I hate that they experimented so much like on weird shit. Like it freaks me out. It freaks
right.
me out at
I
all
know
times.
this was a like totally transition in medical history and
Yeah.
everything. And it's just like it's so what I like about this, even like all these shots, like David Lynch is clear, he was an art director before he became David Lynch and started directing. So he's got a very strong idea, like visually, of what he wants and stuff.
And I mean,
And
Stuart Craig goes on to do like Harry Potter and like just a phenomenal career.
yeah, absolutely. And this is one of his early movies, but it's phenomenally, I think this is great production design as well. Like it's just a really good thought out movie. The look of it is very unique. It's all, it's got to be a challenge when you're told, yeah, you got the job, but it's going to be shot in black and white.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
okay. Right. So, and everything's going to look gritty and it's going to be dark and shadowy but the design of it looks so good, like all the elements, the hand painted signs, everything. It's just such a great movie. I feel when I watch this movie, I think of the 1930s, like the Universal Studios movies, like the Frankenstein's and the Draculas, and I think of that, and it feels like this movie nearly feels like it could have been in that category. Like it feels like it's got those kind of elements where just the way it just feels and the look of it, and you know Todd Browning's movie Freaks from
Oh yeah.
1930. Like it's got all that, like, you know, the design is pulling from that. David Lynch is pulling from that. It's got that all like that feeling overall. I
There
find
is a montage in the beginning of this and later when he goes back to the freak show of all the freaks and everything,
right.
which is like so jumbled up and it's so dark that when I tried to take screenshots, it didn't really work out. It's like there's so much going on in those scenes and they're very dimly lit. And
Yeah.
because it's not something familiar, at least to me, I thought I got lost a lot. And thank goodness for the signage that they have. Or like I don't know what that look, the wind. I don't know what that guy's doing. What is he doing? And
Yeah. He's
why is that chick laying down? Like I don't know what's going on.
what's their little freak thing? It's obvious, you know, pulling from something of that time period.
Yeah. I don't know.
Um,
I don't know.
it's yeah, and it's definitely like, you know, when they're in that whole world of the carnival stuff or any of that stuff, it just feels very, you know, nasty, and everybody's like drunk and
Yeah,
poor.
it's
It's
gross. It's so
dark.
disturbing, really,
Yeah,
that this, this is real. And the shots actually of Anthony Hopkins walking down these like really dark alleys to get to the freak shows is scary too.
yeah, it's very city, and it's like, yeah, you're going into this world, yeah,
Yeah,
completely. And it's like when, you know, Anthony Hopkins is having conversations with the guy who's the proprietor of the Elephant Man.
the black
Um,
guy with the top hat.
and it's like, you know, you understand me, we have a deal. And it's kind of like you're jumping into this world of exploitation as well by coming in here to see him, or, you know,
Apparently, the real handler, the guy in that top hat who was being portrayed, wasn't that mean
okay,
to him.
John.
And was kind of like a partner with him and gave him like half of everything or whatever, and didn't kidnap him as they do in the film. He
Right.
didn't he didn't do that. So obviously Hollywood got in here and twisted and turned it a little.
You need a villain. You need
Yeah.
a
But
villain.
yeah, and that's an easy villain of just taking advantage of this poor man.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's interesting because the whole storyline is like, you know, he does go then to a better life, but he's still kind of taken advantage of. But
Yeah.
uh this is, yeah, this is great because this, like the contrast, you know, in all these shots, here we are at the hospital. Like that floor is fantastic, that tile
That
floor.
floor is fantastic. I know it's blue because I took it. It's a screenshot, but it's
Uh,
fantastic. The pattern of that is and that they took that shot of
yes, they did that shot, like looking down of him, you know, and it looks like, to me, it looks like they built that desk. You know, it's just that small.
yeah. That
Like,
should not be that close to the stairs. It's weird.
yeah, it's either someone messed up or it was a brilliant stroke of genius. You know, that
Yeah.
it's like it's got
Well,
that kind of
I
tiny
think
little.
too, it was also like, oh, all the wards are upstairs, go upstairs, but they take him to the back.
Yeah,
They take him
exactly.
to the back
The
entrance.
word.
Um,
And yeah, it's this is just, you know, so great. It's simple looking, but it's effective because like it's a black and white palette, you know. And you know, I like, just getting on the subject of black and white, just going slightly on a tandem. I interviewed uh production designer Bill Bonnard several years ago, and he did the Ed Sullivan Show,
oh,
and talked about, you know, back in those days, it was all black and white. So you had to design to black and white, and your color palette had to reflect that. So again, this is good because it's not something that you got to really think about when you're designing for black and white,
yeah.
like how they're going to look on a wall when the film is processed, and you know, you're looking at it in color and you're thinking, okay, how is this going to look like in black and white? You know, I can take a Polaroid of it, I guess, or whatever, back in 1980.
Well,
But it,
I had talked to Jan Pascal, and when she did Good Night and Good Luck in black
yes,
and white, um, she said I was really lucky that the iPhone was around because I would just go around and look through the black and white on my phone at patterns and colors and everything. And they made us up a like a swatch board of the wall colors and everything so I could try to test it on my own when I was out shopping. But they didn't
Right.
have that in 80, you know.
No, no, I'm just thinking, someone's going around with a Polaroid camera taking
Yeah.
shots
Yeah.
and seeing how it looks. But
I,
it's,
I love the simplicity of this. I love showing like everyone was in one room. It's like the intensive care unit today. You can't, it's not this anymore. And the gas lights. I mean, oh my
that's
God.
like, yeah. And that feels like it's, it gives a kind of like when they light the gas lights and they turn them off, and it's all that kind of industrial thing. And, when Anthony Hopkins is talking about he's doing like surgery on some guy who's had like some horrific accident. And it's like, oh, these infernal machines and stuff. And then there's all those shots, those great shots of the machines working and the steam and all that. And it's
Do
kind
you
of,
think this is a location? Because they're only in here these two times. Like
yeah,
the
it just like just looking at the architecture on the walls and everything, it just does feel like they dressed
I think that's a location, right? And then his when he's
this.
teaching, I think
Yeah,
is a
well, yeah, his sir or his little where he's giving a speech, that room feels like a location. But yeah, I mean this looks like this is great here, like just the whole light and shadow, and like how like the set dressing, all these blank walls basically with your
yeah.
gas lights and stuff on them. And then the detail of the dressing on the tables and everything is just so nice and so kind
It's
of like
dense, but it's not overdone.
not overdone, and it's kind of like his character in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
It's he's very controlled, and it's like, Anthony Hopkins plays him like, he has sheds a tear, or he gets angry, and he plays it a very kind of quiet. Yeah, here's the scene where they were doing the surgery on the
It
guy.
freaks me out. It totally freaks me out. I hate it. I hate
It's the other guys. One guy's got the rope holding them
I
down
know. I don't even know what's going on. They've got tubes. I
with
don't.
thing, and yeah, it's just like it's very weird. That's why I don't know. It just like what I like about this movie is it feels like it could be like from another time period. It does feel like one of these early like Universal movies or something as well. It's just got the whole look of it, or the
Yeah,
weird.
the
And
weirdness.
yeah, and David Lynch has done a great job on this, obviously, and Stuart Craig as well, and
Yeah.
obviously this is awesome. I love this
This
Mr. Khan's room.
as soon as
Yeah,
Gilgood comes on, I'm
yeah,
full attention because I
yeah,
love his voice. I love his voice. He's one of my favorites.
yeah. It's
I think
fantastic.
his office is fantastic too, and I wonder if this was a build or if this was a location. I don't know, but it's
Yeah,
dressed to his character.
it feels like a lot of the hospital stuff is location stuff. I feel like the room, the elephant man's room,
Those are builds, but and
for
that
sure.
staircase, but maybe the elevator, like the
Yeah,
elevator. I don't know. I love the tile.
the tile is great. The expanded metal mesh, like wiring on the door going into the isolation area. It all feels great. And what's great about this, with being black and white as well, is it's there's a great contrast to give depth because of the fact that your wainscot and the tile and all that is all like very dark, and then the walls are very light, and it gives you a feeling of depth because of that. And the dado line, I was going to talk about the dado line that they
Yeah.
run a whole hospital. The
Yeah.
fact that it's so the dark and the light, the contrast, if those walls were not painted like that, it would be so flat and so dead. You know,
You have to contrast the either
yeah,
up top or light on top or something that just helps break up the walls so much
yeah,
against people, against characters, against dressing.
absolutely, absolutely. And even in this scene with they have all the like the curtains going around the bed are all very dark against the white walls.
Okay.
It really it's a good breakup. So there's
Yeah.
Great use of breakup of light and dark in this.
They don't have it in there, but that room's pretty tiny. But even
Yeah.
his office, they have it.
It's got that breakup as well. Yeah. And he's got all that great stuff on the walls, all those paintings and stuff. And I was going to talk about that as well. I like all the little photos, the frame photos,
Oh, in his room.
his room, and in particular throughout, like when when he goes to Anthony Hopkins's.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I have all that.
you got that later, or
Yeah, I have that later. I just want to talk. I just want to say, look how look how high up the gas light is in Elephant Man's uh attic room here. I feel
right?
like that's unsafe. I feel like that
It,
might have should have come down a little or something. I don't know.
and I like the way it's kind of like they have the window down so
Oh,
low.
so good.
Clearly, yeah, and the angles and everything in this little room is like so well. It's like you're in an attic, like you're in this tiny little space. It's really well designed that it's compact and it shows the angles and it's a very basic room, but the shape of it makes it feel tells the story of where you are, because if this was just like four straight walls or whatever, it's like, okay, well, where is he? And this feels like, yep, he's up in the attic. He's definitely like
The
the
window on the bottom is a tell.
sure, yeah, but it
He has
just
a sink. Well, I don't know if he doesn't have running water,
no.
the pitcher, but he's got a basin over there.
A basin, and again, it's a good use of contrast, all that dark wood furniture against the
Yeah.
wall, the black and whiteness, just so it doesn't there's a good contrast, and it's great, like even his character there, he's got that black glove on with the
Yeah.
white
It's
it's
just
great visually, it all looks so good.
um I love this had to have been a location because they were only there for like one scene, but I found it impactful to show that what the rest of the world looked like. Because really
Right.
we're in Elephant Man's world, and then we're in the hospital, and we do Anthony Hopkins'
Yeah,
house, but this is the board of the hospital, and they're talking about should we let him stay, should we not, and I just found it really nice, the perspective and this big long room and the table and
absolutely, yeah, it just feels there's a sense of authority about it, there's a sense of like it's a big space, you can tell it's got high ceilings, just the shape and feel of this room and what they're doing in there, it's like it's a very everything else is kind of small or gritty or whatever and all the scenes, and this room is like probably the biggest, one of the biggest rooms we see in the
yeah.
entire movie, and
Mm.
it's got a sense of authority, or this is like judgment's coming down here, or it just
I mean, they
feels
got
good.
quills. They got quills.
A
They
quill,
they
and
got
they
little
like
plates for their pipes.
yes, and the yeah, and then like all the detail, like it's kind of hard to see everything because it's so dark, but like back there you got that bust.
The
uh,
bus, big
uh
fireplace, I'm assuming, and yeah,
yeah, and there's like this is a room, this room says this is a place where stuff gets decided,
yeah,
and it's very it also speaks of like you know intellectual kind of quality of like we're deciding the world, and there's the other world where all these
yeah.
people agree to the steam, and we're in a different world completely. Yeah,
They
yeah,
give him another room after that scene. They decide, okay, he can stay. So then they give him another room with
yes,
like
which
a brick, kind of like
like
a brick
the
wall view, but on an alley or something. I don't know.
yeah, and I mean this is just even to talk about this, it's clear like looking at this, like where they have a little bump out beside his bed, like it's
Right.
clearly designed that they're going to pull that wall so they can get a shot of him sitting on the bed, sleeping or whatever across the room. There's like, you can see all these little things. It's, well designed, thought out little space, because it is quite small when you're
Yeah.
looking at it. It's got three doors going into it, but
Yeah.
it's
That
got
was
the back Or it's got the door that, you know, comes down the little steps, and then there's another door that leads to outside. And it's kind of, you know, why would this tiny room have
Through
three
access. That's why. So,
access? Exactly. Yeah. It's kind of also, it's like, you know, in the storyline, what is this room? It's some kind of like transitional room or something,
and
you know?
it did, yes, because there's a caretaker at night who pays people to come and look at him as a freak show, like through the window, like almost like he never left the freak show.
Exactly.
Very visually hard to watch. But he's like walking outside of the guy's window. So I don't, he's not on the ground. I guess he's on the ground floor, or I can
He's got,
never understand it.
yeah, he's in a place that's like the back area of the hospital or something, you know. It's like there's an alleyway that leads to it, and there's, you go past coal bunkers, all that stuff. So, you know, he's given his own little room, but it's, you know, it's his little space, but it's not like the, you know, like a really opulent place they gave him, but it's still
It
nice.
makes it nice. Like he's there for a while. Look, he's got different painting. He's got all the picture frames up. He's got more books.
So
He's working on that model. He's got curtains now.
curtains, he's got the model, he's building the model, and the model's symbolic as, you know, he's coming out of himself. He didn't speak at the beginning, then he speaks, and now he's been creative and he's building this model. And there's, you know, he's making it from,
Props.
yeah, he's making it from you know, from, he tells the nurse he can't see the rest of the building, he can only see the steeple from his room, but he's making it from imagination,
Yeah.
you know,
So sad.
making this whole thing up, which is great. But I was going to say about the set dressing, about the all the frame photos, which I find fabulous, because it was obviously, you know, historically at that time period, you know, photography was coming in,
Right.
and he was doing it, and it was an important talking point. Obviously, when people went to have tea in someone's house, because when he goes to Anthony Hopkins' house and he's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, your kids. Oh, can I see that?" Yeah,
All up there.
there
Yeah.
you go. Tons of pictures as well. It's obviously it's something. And then he has this little picture of his mom
On
that
his
he carries with him everywhere.
table. Yeah.
And that was like, that's kind of his connection to humanity that keeps him there. And that kind of translates into having all these pictures. His humanity is thrown, you know, shown through the use of all these, this great set dressing, but all these little frame photos of all his friends and these famous people who come to see him and all that. And it's kind of like, you know, it kind of builds out his character a lot.
Because
So
he becomes a different kind of freak show where high society wants to come and see him.
right.
And so that's who's giving him all of these pictures, because it's odd. He doesn't have any family. It's just his mom, as you're saying. Like, so it's super odd that he has all these pictures.
Yeah, he's trying to create his own family, or he's trying to create a world that he's trying to get away from being an animal. It's obviously the great scene where he screams, "I am not an animal," you know. So he's trying to be
He's
this,
dancing to a picture of Anne Bancroft. Like
right.
he's got a fantasy, that he's dressed up for her and he's
Yeah,
probably in love with her.
yes, yeah.
And
So
then
it's,
the Nightman comes in and makes him a freak show, and I was crying. So,
I hard. I had a tear in my eye as well when the whole, well, and he ends up, you know, in France, and you know, it's like, and they're speaking to him in French. He's giving them the things, you know, in French,
oh
and he's
yeah, well,
and all that, you know. It's like, it's just so sad, because he was obviously a very, you know, intelligent person. And
yeah.
uh yeah, so
Never really found out. Like they even did his DNA recently in like the last 10, 15 years, and they nailed it down to like two different diseases, but there's a third one that they can't identify.
right.
But
uh yeah, so I mean, it's amazing. They also preserved all his bones.
yeah, they made a mask of the mold of his
Cast
face.
everything out when he died. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's cool. Someone had the foresight to like hold on to all that stuff to figure out in the future. We'll figure out what was wrong with him.
Oh,
But I love Anthony Hopkins' house as well, because it's very well dressed. It's, you know, it's clearly showing this time period.
so
And
overdone. It's
it,
so there's something on every corner. Look at this. There's something like
yeah,
way too much going on everywhere, but like he's sitting in that chair and sitting on that little sofa. What is that thing? That little picture next to him, just at the right height. But I don't
There's
think.
there's a
Oh, I
lot of
guess he's blocking. He's blocking it in that scene, but
yeah.
it's a lot going on. It's fantastic, but there's a lot going on in this house to show that he's a rich doctor.
He's a rich doctor, and it's kind of a contrast and of like the plainness of the Elephant Man's room or whatever. But he's yeah, there's a lot of detail in Tchotchkes, but I love the curtains and
I love
everything.
the curtains and the little sewing thing in the back there. I think, yeah, all of the frames, that fabric with the tassels on that's a keeper.
Right.
That's fantastic research right there.
Right. And that this time period as well, just technically the use of machines and stuff, and the mass production, and there was new color palettes coming in at this time, in society, and ways of doing stuff or making it. So everybody wanted, like, we all want the latest iPhone, or we all want this
Yeah.
TV. They're no different to us. They wanted the best, Valence, or they
Yeah.
wanted the best.
All in fact, whatever was in fashion, and then you had a party to show that you had it.
And
Her
this was,
room is fantastic.
yeah, her little dressing room is fabulous. I mean, it's got so much detail, and I love all the photos, again, the frame photos. It's such a thing through the whole, design of the movie, is all these little frame photos everywhere, showing, depicting life, and
Yeah.
her, all the detail here, like even the pearls hanging, the gas lamps again,
Fabulous wallpaper, like a big pattern, but
drapery,
the
every,
drapery, the frames are on top of it, the lighting. It's
yeah,
kind of a mess. Like she's got everything, but it's a mess, which is great with the
yeah.
make.
It's got a lot of detail. Like, she's obviously very busy. She's always like doing stuff or whatever. And it's like she's got a lot of clutter in her room. And, great use again of, like, the fireplace is painted black against that wallpaper to give us a contrast. And her little table and stuff there, and her mirrors and stuff, it's all dark against the thing. All the furniture's more than, it's like, it's all kind of dark.
And that
Uh,
I would say this was probably a 3 wall set.
yes. Yeah. It looked like it was very kind of like just a small little set, because it's only one scene,
Yeah.
basically, I think.
Yeah, they might come back to her again when she's like, but this is the main scene in it.
Yes, yeah.
Right now, they take him they
Now
take poor guy to France.
he's in France, and this, yeah, the guy's getting drunk as his
And
owner.
this scene is actually really dark. This is my photo from my TV. It's actually super dark. And I think I found this on a screenshot, and I was like, oh, mine actually shows what's going on. You can't,
Right.
you can't see any of this when you're watching it.
And the stuff in the background, like, it looks like a painted drop.
Yeah.
Looks like canvas. What I liked about this scene, and that whole thing with the carnival stuff, is it felt, this really feels like a throwback to, the movie Freaks, or one of those Universal movies. It just feels like a very old thing. You have all these pieces, these elements, but there's no wind really blowing. It feels very set, like it's on a stage. Even though it's outdoors, it's supposed to be outdoors. It feels like, there's nothing moving on the ground. There's no movement in any of the elements. It just feels, very static, but it's still got a very great visual look.
I mean, I just noticed there's a horse there.
You didn't notice? Yeah.
I didn't notice there was a horse before. Yeah, it's
I think that whole thing where, he was thrown in with the
do I have
monkey.
that? I don't
Yeah.
have that. It was too hard. They throw him in like a monkey cage, and it's just awful. It's
Yeah.
just sad.
Yeah. It was really, like, amazingly
But
brutal.
let's be positive that didn't really happen to him.
Really.
Only in Hollywood. Here's
Uh,
some of the freak show. Again, they pan and do some of the freak show, and
yeah. And
uh,
this is
yeah,
France.
I
Yeah.
guess it's Siamese twins there or something. I don't know what's going on.
Siamese twins. There's the
Oh,
the
oh,
over tall person.
with
Uh,
a little person. Yeah.
the canvas little like
Yeah.
kind of alcoves or cubbies they're in, and it's fun because it's like it's very circusy feel,
Well, this
but
is equivalent to when you get the set and they're like, okay, so they're at a carnival and there's like 30 booths. And you
yeah,
struggle to be like, okay, well, what's in every booth?
yeah.
And how are we, gonna say, oh yeah, they're just doing a walk and talk. You're like, what?
Creative.
Okay, cool. So it doesn't matter what I throw in these booths, really, but we're gonna make it look fantastic.
Thinking about pulling this up to Thursday.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. It's
nope.
Tuesday. That's cool, right?
Yeah,
There's a
yeah.
storm coming.
Test positive for COVID, and we're gonna,
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure, yeah. That's no problem. Let's just stay
No
up all night.
problem. We can do it. Well, I
Uh,
always say no first, and then I go, oh yeah, we can do it. But yeah, I mean, it's a quick pan of like at least 4 or 5 booths, like the one in the beginning. So I know a lot of work was put into them. Uh,
Corridors at the beginning as well.
now look, so they get him, they rescue, or he rescues himself, really. He gets back to London, gets back to the hospital.
Yeah.
They take him to a play,
Mhm.
which I was fascinated with. I was like, oh my God, look how, I wonder if this was a real play that they just went and shot. Did they design all this? It's
Designed it.
beautiful.
I mean, this is great. This is, Stuart Craig is doing a great job here.
Oh,
Fabulous.
man.
It's all very authentic because of that. I mean, if you watch like, those early movies, silent movies of the Malay brothers and stuff, Journey to the Moon or Trip to the
Yes.
Moon,
Yeah, yeah,
all
yeah.
like painted theatrical sets like this. And this is probably, I think this was set in this 1880s, 18 early, maybe early
Yeah.
90s. And, it's got that whole theatrical hand painted set stuff. Everything's,
But the perspective.
yeah, this perspective, it's all two-dimensional, but they build it up and with all the tree stuff and to make it three-dimensional. And that type of stuff is very early silent movie stuff. But this is clearly, well thought out little set as well for the performance here. We don't see we see a lot of like close-ups and stuff.
Yeah.
Uh,
I did not remember this scene at all.
I
And
forgot it.
I rewound it because I was like, oh, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it was really well kind of put together, and like all the painted stuff, hand painted. It's all very cool. It's very authentic to that time period. If you went to the theater in 1880s, this is the type of stuff you would see. And it's all like, it looks like it's all movable. They're moving the
Yeah.
stuff in, and it's a great, you know, piece of design work that, it's all put together so well.
But it is like, oh, then they goes to a theater and they're putting on this play. And then, you know, it's
Yeah,
2 sentences in a script,
I
but it's
know.
a lot of work and it's fantastically done.
It's fantastically done, and it's like, it's only a montage basically, and it's so well done, and it conveys like a different vibe because we have all these like nightmare elements of the visual look of all these machines and the steam and the sounds and all this stuff, and this is more like a dream sequence where he's now sitting with,
Yeah. Upper crust.
booth, and Anthony Hopkins is like, it's funny when you see Anthony Hopkins behind him and he's
Yeah.
just going like, dude, look, this guy's life has changed so much. And it's like, it's just amazing how, and yeah, it's great because this is kind of like nearly like it feels like a dream to him. He's never been to the theater before, or the opera, and he's about it and everything. And it's great.
This should have been earlier, but he's on a ship to get
Yeah.
back to London. But fantastic. I believe they shot that on a ship. I don't think that was a
No, I don't think this was a set. This feels like it was on location, but it's great. I was going to talk about his costume for a second, how
Oh
it's such a
yeah.
contrast. The dark and the light again contrasts everything great when he's walking by walls, when he's walking on any location. in it. He stands out in it, and it's so it just feels so good. It looks so amazingly good and authentic, like we the one little eye and the stitching around it and everything. But
Yeah, they do a close up at one point of the stitching around that little eye hole, which is sad. And then I had a thought when he's running, when when that mob is like chasing him, and the hat never falls off.
right,
He must have a hat pin or something because
yeah,
that doesn't fall off. But it's
yeah,
so simple, but it's so dramatic.
yes, yes. And he's just going with the one good hand, and he's
Yeah.
and yeah, it's very, very dramatic. It's
Yeah.
it's such a great movie. It's
I think this is, this ending scene and
yeah,
going
this
back to bed and that's
yeah,
it.
that's it. And it's just great. Like he's achieved everything, and they say, oh, he's dying, and he's like, it's nearly the first time in the movie that he's made his own choice, because everyone's making choices for him the entire time. He's like he's captivated, or he's in the hospital, or whatever. But now he decides to die. He
Yeah.
decides his own choice. He's finished everything he wanted. Um, and it's great. It just visually, like, nobody says that, but through the use of great set dressing, where we have that photo on the wall of the little child asleep. I
Yeah.
don't know if you shot of that,
Don't have
but
a
that shows you know what he's going to do. He's
yeah.
going to
The little boy's laying down flat, and he makes a comment earlier in the film, like, I wish I could lay down flat to
yeah,
sleep. They have like 6, 8 pillows on his bed every night for him so he can sit upright, because I'm assuming he would have fluid in his lungs, and that's how they're like,
yeah,
you keep him down. And even when he's in the cage, or when the guy
yeah,
beats him, he's sitting up straight with sleeping and everything. So he's never really laid down to sleep. And so the ending is it's funny too, because there's so many pillows on his bed
I
that
know.
it's like, and it's not like a huge bed. And he takes the pillows off, and you think, that bed is so small. Like, how is
I,
he even gonna lay down in it? Because it looked like almost like a child bed, because he was sitting up in it. And I was like, how is he gonna lay down that now? But they sort of push into his face of him laying completely down to go to sleep. And then that's the end.
yeah,
And the other thing that is incredible in this movie is the music.
music
Like,
is fabulous. Yeah,
music is fantastic. And in the beginning of the film, there's this sequence, like a celestial of his mother and everything. He's thinking of his mom. And so when at the end, when we're supposing that he's going to die again, there's this sequence of him and his mom, and it's like the stars and her face, and
yes.
it's that song from Platoon. And to me,
Requiem. What is it? I think
uh,
it's
Lynch used Samuel Barber's Adigo for strings.
okay.
And to me, I hear that song and I just think Platoon. And
Yeah,
now I think of Elephant Man. But
and it's funny because Platoon was another when, like, 6, 7 years before it was made. Like this, because I think it was like 86 or 87.
yeah.
It's right. And this is obviously used it first, and maybe Oliver Stone was like, "Oh, dude, I got to use that music."
Well, it said composer John Morris of the film argued against using the music, stating that this piece is going to be used over and over and over again in the future. And every time it's used in a film, it's going to diminish the effect of this scene.
Mm,
So, and that to me is like, wow, I heard it, and all I could think of is Willem Dafoe.
yeah, dying. Yeah, I know.
So it's a movie magic to me
Right.
of how music or a lighting piece can stick in your head and influence you,
Mhm.
bring thoughts back of like, and crying at Platoon, and then crying because the Elephant Man's dying. So it's like invoking those emotions with the music in two completely different circumstances. It was fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was.
Still great movie.
Yeah.
Fantastically.
I actually I think this should have been runner up. If we're gonna give a second place award, I think it should have been runner up.
Okay.
But I actually don't think Tess should have won. So
I was going to get, I thought we talk about that at the end.
yeah.
But